I have to tell you that whenever someone asks me for my favorite actors, you're always on the top of the list. So
that's very sweet of you. I bet you say that to all your podcasts.
That's not true at all. No. I'm very taken by your work, so I appreciate you being on.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Now, I'm looking at your release schedule. It's City of Ember, October 10th.
Yeah.
W, October 17th. Frost Nixon in December. You're really owning the multiplexes this season.
Yes. I don't know about the multiplex. Do you think all of those will be multiplex films?
Well, I think that a couple of those definitely have that potential. They're all such high-quality films with great filmmakers behind them.
I mean, that is for me, that's the most extraordinary thing. It's the thrill of working with those three directors in their different ways is so remarkable. And as a British actor, to go over to the States, certainly in the case of Frost Nixon and W, and work with people whose films you've grown up watching, I mean, it's a fantastic thing.
Well, something strikes me about you, and maybe I'm off base, but these are such wonderfully challenging, risky roles that you've taken on. You have your whole career. But I think the thing that impresses me most about you are those choices, but it seems to me that you gravitate towards the material that frightens you the most. And I'm wondering how fear benefits you as an actor, if that is the case.
Well, on a very practical level, fear keeps you awake at night, so you get more time to work on roles. Because you can't leave, if you're working on a voice, or if you're working just to research, so you know what on earth you're talking about. But joking aside, when you're an actor, if you're not playing lead roles all the time, then it's quite chaotic, your life. You're thinking, what's on the table? What am I going up for? What may I get? What might I not get? And it's quite chaotic. I would say that, given the choice between two parts, if two parts came up simultaneously, I would certainly pick the other one just because, as an actor, you're trying to stay a moving target. You're not really trying to confirm what people already know about you.
Yes,
because I've never really understood people who want to do just one thing. But of course, it's a hard thing to do because people begin to associate you with certain parts. I just had the call before I spoke to you. I just had a call about a part, an American part to do on radio here, which I love. And they said, we can't think of anyone else. We can't think of anyone else who could do it but you, and please do it, which is incredibly flattering. And I suppose that is that's the aim, I suppose, is to try and play a wide variety of parts as possible.
Well, and the roles you have chosen, some of these roles are so iconic. And so I would think doing them as well as you do, it would be easy to be pigeonholed as one or the other if you weren't so versatile in your choices. But I'm thinking, of course, of Capote and Infamous, which I think is an extraordinary performance and the most extraordinary film that year.
You loved the film?
I adored the film.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say to you, Jamie, that I think, everyone always tries to sympathise with me, but, it's very, very rare that a script that good will come your way, and the fact you get to act in it outweighs any kind of... People feel a need to commiserate. But that's only because people didn't see it on the opening weekend. Gradually, a film permeates the culture in a way that didn't used to happen. Right. And I think that that film has found a very wide, enthusiastic audience. I know it has, and I'm very pleased with that, because I just thought when I first read that script, it was so good that I'd never have a chance to play that part.
The part has so many colors to it. The film is lively and deeply sad, and it's an amazing experience. But also, Karl Rove in the upcoming W, and Swifty Lazar and Frost Nixon, and these real-life kind of iconic characters. I'm wondering what your process is in crafting these. Are they essentially the same when you're tackling a role such as these?
there's, I suppose, yeah, I suppose the process has emerged just because of those recently playing people who are actually either alive or certainly died relatively recently. I suppose, you try and watch as much footage of them as you can, and in the case of Capote there was a lot of footage, interview footage, and in the case of Karl Rove you have the extraordinary thing of finishing a day's filming, going home and watching him live on TV, which is slightly strange. And then with Swifty Lazar, it's slightly different because it's very, very hard to get any footage of him. And so, working with his voice, I got access to some CDs of his voice dictating stuff, which is really useful. So it varies, but how one does it, I think there's a certain amount of research that goes in of reading what people would imagine goes into researching a part, and then there's a kind of intuitive thing that has to take over because you just don't know how people pick up the phone or redial numbers or sit alone in their hotel bedroom or finish their meal or get up. There's just no way of doing that, and I think that's when using one's imagination, you try and piece together something, and on good screenplays, which all the ones I've mentioned are, they suggest a dynamic that you're sort of trying to either work with or work against to suggest character in it.
Yeah, there's many examples of this, but the one that comes to mind is I remember hearing an interview with De Niro years back when he was preparing Cape Fear, and he said that he started to find the character when he started to try on those really garish Hawaiian shirts. I was wondering, have you built any of these characters from the outside in?
Well, I mean, yeah, in general terms, I suppose I have, because that was the way I was trained, which is I was trained a lot in movement, and so I suppose I'm drawn to try and find the way people move, but movement in the widest sense, because of course their voice is movement as well, and has to be to try and link the voice to the body so that you're not just doing a voice and then doing everything else, but trying to find out how the voice comes out of the body is the challenge, really, because otherwise I think it looks like you're trying to imitate someone, which you're not really. You're trying to actually create a character very heavily based on the person you're playing,
Yeah. Is there kind of an aha moment for you when there's a adjustment or a phrase or something that you find where I've got it, this character?
Well, I mean, it depends slightly on the size of the part. Obviously, Truman Capote is by far the biggest role I've ever played on screen, and there are many aha moments when you're trying to work out why he might speak in that extraordinary way, and that's partly anatomical reasons, and also you're sort of thinking about the way he grew up and where he grew up. So that's a sort of longer process. But when you haven't got so much time, to a certain extent with Karl Rove and Swifty Lazar, there's a photo of Swifty Lazar. There's a story of Swifty Lazar as a young man, and he looks extraordinary. I mean, as an older man, he looks sort of. He's an extraordinary concoction of high fashion and wealth on this tiny man with these very famous spectacles.
Right.
But then you think he's going to be eccentric and wildly amusing and stuff, and I'm not sure that he is. I think what he is incredibly tough guy who fights to be taken seriously, and he started out his career as a music agent going from club to club, and there's actually a great story about him glassing Otto Preminger when there was some problem over the rights to In Cold Blood, and Swifty Lazar literally getting up from his table, he's a tiny man, smaller than Truman Capote, and clacking this enormous Otto Preminger with a glass. And that fighter thing, that sort of felt very important, because that's a useful thing to play against the kind of exotic, eccentric dress that the guy doesn't get the joke, you know. And Karl Rove, I just always think Karl Rove, you know, I was struck, the first thing I ever thought about before I was even asked to play Karl Rove, is it always looked like he's listening to a joke, you know, always somewhere that no matter what is thrown at him, no matter how much, you know, shit gets thrown at him, he always appears to be, I was saying some other day, it's like he's getting circus music piped directly into his ear or something. It's just a kind of, it's all a big game, and a game that he plays incredibly well, or has done up to now, and I'm not sure how ideological Karl Rove actually is deep down, fundamentally. I think he's fascinated by the whole game of it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Rove, in that I hear actors speak about even if they're playing the most villainous of parts, because even if you're playing the villain, you're the hero of your own story. That you must have some level of sympathy or empathy for your characters, and I'm wondering where you found that in Rove.
Well, I think, you know, I think you're right the way you put it. The thing is, everyone's trying to do the best they can in life, and some people forget that the strategies that they're using to be the best that they can at whatever it is they're doing have, you know, they don't coincide with what other people are doing, and also that what they've done that may not work anymore for a different situation. Right. And I think that Karl Rove had a very strange childhood. You know, he lost his, you know, his parents divorced, and he became very close to his stepfather, who then moved away, and I don't mean his stepfather, I mean the second father. So there's turbulence there, you know, there's a lot of turbulence there, and from what you hear about him, he's sort of monstrously controlling of his staff. And this need to control, this need to be in charge, this need to be at the center of the universe. These are things that are neither good nor bad, they're just ways people are coping with the world, and they're in a way much more interesting and useful for an actor than any judgment about whether people are, you know, how good or bad society views them. Yeah. I mean, it's really not my job as an actor to do that. It's the job of the writer, first of all, to put you in situations. Sure. And then oftentimes, the most interesting thing would be to play against that. You know, to play against the badness of a situation, or play against the goodness of a situation.
Well, I'm a huge fan, as we all are, with the work of Oliver Stone, and with this film and so many of his other films, I think this is where he thrives. It feels like this movie is in kind of a dangerous area. It's right there on the edge, and I'm wondering.
Yeah, he seems to absolutely love that. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you felt that as an actor.
Yeah, I felt that he was. He's a very inspirational director. His energy and his refusal to take the easy option, even when budgetary demands are put upon him, is very inspiring. It's the kind of thing you want to be around, that kind of energy. And his, you know, people have talked about it, but maybe it's not so widely known about just how much information he has in his head about history, both recent political history and ancient political history. He has sort of direct access to this, and so when he's strutting around a film set and coming in, whispering in your ear and directing things, he has that film director's skill of being able to listen to many different voices in his head simultaneously. But one of those voices is this political historical knowledge, and he's able to cite things, you know, almost at will, instances of things. That's amazing. I mean, it's really astonishing.
Is it possible, because I know you do your fair share of stage work as well, is it possible to have that kind of sense of freedom on a film set that you do on a theater stage?
Well, I mean, you're never going to have control of time in a way that you do on stage. The thrill for the actor on stage is that you're in charge of controlling the time, and obviously the director and the editor and to some extent film executives are the eventual
deciders of time. But if you have a director like Oliver Stone, I suppose, or indeed Doug McGraw on Infamous, who wants to tell a story with, just, they want to use extravagant, flamboyant characters to tell a story that may look realist, but requires, great dynamics in the performance. You're going to get freedom of performance, and in fact, both those directors pushed me to go further in my characterization than my instincts for acting on film, first suggested.
I mean, I know that the approach of this film is satirical in a way.
Have you seen it?
Not as of yet, no, sir.
No. So I haven't seen the film yet. But what's interesting about the whole satirical thing is I think that people may be expecting a ha-ha ride, and there's two things I would imagine I'm going to see when I see this film, and the first one is that I don't think people are going to come out and go, God, George Bush, what an idiot. I think they will think certainly big aspects of what decisions he's made will be based on limited understanding of problems, or an understanding that is conditioned by more personal things, a bit like we've been talking about the other characters. I think that much of the film is about his struggle to escape the shadow of his past, and that's a very serious theme, and I think it's treated seriously. Nonetheless, for all his extraordinary memory, George W. Bush, he's not a great analyst. He says in the film he's a gut player, and I think that it would be weird not to laugh at laugh very darkly, because we're all suffering the consequences of his limited understanding. But what's interesting is, which I like in any film, is the complicated tone of it, really.
And I think that Stone embraces that. His Nixon painted a brilliant man with just tremendous demons, and I thought it was very, very sympathetic.
Me too.
I think that's a big strength of Oliver Stone's that people refuse to point out. But tell me, the one film that we haven't discussed is City of Ember, and that opens up on October 10th. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Well, that one, I went to meet the director for that, Gil Keenan, who's clearly a genius. It didn't take very long to realise he was a genius, because he lifted out and showed me some pictures and stuff like that, and I'd read the script, and it's not the most demanding part I've ever played. It allows me to act with Bill Murray, which is great thrill. But what's very exciting about it, I think, is the world that Gil has created in the film, which is a sort of Gilliam-esque world. Mm-hmm. It's a world for fans of people like Terry Gilliam, who make microcosms, who make fantasy films that they're not a whole new set of rules so much as a kind of comment on the rules we're already almost living by. And it's just visually very, very beautiful, and very, very daring for a studio to make a film like this for children, because it's very dark for children, which is one of the great things about the book, but also it's just, it's a very interesting cast, in it, very diverse cast in it. And again, it's a dark theme for kids, it's an adventure of someone underground trying to escape back into the real world, which they've been told is destroyed,
It looks fascinating. I was fascinated with it. I knew that I just had to see what that film was when I saw that trailer. You come from a family of performers. It's kind of acting seems to be in your blood in a way. I know your father. He's in one of my favorite films, which is Wild at Heart.
Yes.
Did you catch that early from them?
It's hard to get immunization from those things. It's my dad's a pretty private man, a pretty shy man, and when he works. When he comes home, he comes home. He doesn't live by a swimming pool in L.A. waiting for the phone to ring. He lives a very quiet life, and like a lot of actors. So I don't think I got seduced by any glamour of it. I think I was very aware of the excitement of certain jobs, taking you across the world to meet extraordinary people. I mean, that's the great privilege of our job, is that we get to work with people who have fought very hard to be where they are in the industry, and who are kind of incredibly intelligent, fascinating people, whether they're makeup artists, special effects people, editors, or cameramen, or even, grips and people like that, who have worked in a lot of very strange places doing strange things. And I think that both he and I share a love of meeting those people, and I think that sense of adventure I got quite early, definitely.